I'm going to start the recording, and if I begin to cough or if my voice kind of drops, well then please forgive me because I'm still recovering a little bit. Um if you guys haven't noticed, my voice is still kind of a little bit scratchy. But today we're going to be talking about prions, and these are infectious agents, which I assume most of you have probably never heard about. Have any of you guys heard about prions?
No,
Okay.
but sounds cool.
All right, so let's start off with normal infectious agents. Everyone knows what generally bacteria are, right? Okay, yeah, I'm getting head nods. Very cool. Okay, so generally we know what bacteria are, we know what viruses are. We've all been affected by COVID-19. Um, oh, I'm getting some, yeah, right. Um, COVID-19 is a virus, obviously. So we understand bacteria and viruses. What's up, Colby?
I haven't gotten COVID-19 before, so
Okay, right. I mean, some people haven't gotten COVID before, but we've all had to get like vaccines for COVID, right? And we've all I mean, we've all had to experience distance learning because of COVID, right? I mean, I'm sure all of you guys were at home for a period of time. Okay. I assume most of you guys were at home for a period of time. Um, so all of us kind of know firsthand the dangers of, pathogenic bacteria as well as viruses. You guys might not be as familiar with infectious agents such as fungi or protozoa, but fungi are basically the things that give you foot fungus. Have you guys heard of foot fungus or athlete's foot? Yeah, it basically makes your foot very itchy. It's not very fun. It typically happens when you wear very hot athletic shoes, and you don't wash your feet very, very well. And that's another type of infectious agent, which I'm sure you guys have maybe not experienced, but have generally a pretty novel concept. Which you guys have, I assume, an okay understanding of. Um, our fourth kind of infectious agent category is protozoa. And though the name may sound very complicated, like, oh, protozoa, I wonder what that is. It's really just another name for a type of parasite. And not specifically a type of parasite, a category of parasites. One of the examples in the protozoa category being malaria. Have you guys heard of malaria? Yes, malaria is a very famous infectious disease in the globe, in the world, really. It's transmitted through mosquitoes to humans and then back to mosquitoes and then back to the human. So the malaria parasite has this kind of life cycle of living between the mosquito and then living in the human, and back and forth. Nowadays, we can treat malaria very easily, especially in the US. Technology has progressed to the point where in first world countries like the US, where we have resources, malaria is not a concern, right? You have malaria, you go to the doctor prescribes some medications, you take the meds, and in a few weeks you'll be good to go. Not even a few weeks, maybe even a few days. This last kind of category are the category of prions. And what's really interesting about prions is that they're the only category on here that are not living. If you guys look at bacteria, if you guys look at fungi, if you guys look at these parasites, and the distinction around viruses is kind of iffy. Some people say that viruses are alive, and some people say that they aren't alive. Um, but the point is, with all four categories here, they all have DNA. They all have some kind of genetic information. The thing with prions is that they have no genetic information. They are not in any way arguable that they are living. They are simply proteins within our brain. And I will explain that on the next slide. But the interesting distinction for me is that prions are very very capable in their ability to kill, unfortunately. They're also very rare. And they're so rare that, I mean, generally the US sees about like 1 in a million cases of prion diseases every year. And so you guys have probably heard of bacterial infections like E. coli, or viral infections like COVID-19, or foot fungus or malaria. But have any of you guys heard of fatal familial insomnia, or Kuru? Right, right, exactly. I'm getting shaking heads. So that should put into perspective that prion diseases are actually very rare. And the fact that you guys don't even know, or you guys have never heard of prions or these diseases, is not surprising. I mean, I didn't learn about prions until very late in my freshman year of high school. So you guys being 8 or 9, I was learning this when I was 14. And so you guys definitely have a leg up. What's also very interesting is that you guys have, or not necessarily you guys, but prions are very difficult to understand. Scientists can conduct a lot of research on bacteria. We can research COVID-19. We can develop vaccines for COVID-19. We can create medications that can fight malaria. But prions, they are so rare, and then they are so difficult to treat. All of these factors lead to our understanding of prions being very limited. So we're beginning to look at this edge of science that when you guys have questions for me about prions, I won't be able to answer because prions are so non-understood, right? You guys have gotten to this point where, and every student at some point in their life, when they choose to pursue this field, at some point they are getting to a point where you are looking beyond what the human knowledge contains. And when we go to look at prions, it becomes this kind of field where it's very dark. It's very obscure. We don't know that much about it. And so if you guys are interested in prions, this is a very interesting, fascinating field that is still developing. So you guys can feel free to look online. There are a lot of new papers being published all the time about prion diseases, prion development, and even just what prions will do to the human body. Okay, any questions, anybody? Cool. I know that was a lot of me talking, but hopefully that all made sense. Did that all make sense? Okay. Okay, great. I got a thumbs up. Solid. Cool. All right. Let me grab a sip of water so I don't lose my voice. But let's talk about prions specifically. So prions are a type of protein. And we can kind of see that in the name prion. And I mean, it kind of looks like protein, right? It's got the P, it's got the R, it's got the I, it's got the O, and it even has the N in the word prion. And so what is different about prions are that they are proteins that are folded abnormally. So when we go to look at a prion protein, it doesn't look like a normal protein. And proteins can look like all sorts of things. Remember when we talked about protein synthesis and how proteins are made in the human body? We have amino acids that link together to form these protein chains. And remember that proteins are made in the ribosomes of cells. But what happens is usually these protein, these amino acid chains that form proteins will fold together to form a structure. And that structure will, go do protein things in the body, build muscle, work on other parts of the body, right? Normal protein things. However, prions are proteins that have the correct amino acids. So they've been built correctly, but then somewhere along the process of folding, they fold incorrectly. And this can be due to a variety of factors. Scientists are still trying to figure out why these prions fold incorrectly. But what we do know is that prions typically affect the brain. Either they are made in the brain and they affect the brain, or they eventually make their way to the brain. They travel to the brain. And once they get to the brain, they can cause brain damage, which I mean, obviously, it's really bad. The brain is one of the most important organs in the body, and they can cause brain damage because these abnormal proteins, they can trigger other proteins in the brain to fold abnormally. These prions that are folded poorly, they will group on to different proteins and they will create these clumps in the brain that lead to brain damage. And if we, excuse me, if we come look at this photo right here, does anyone notice these like pretty large holes in the tissue, right? All of this pink stuff, this is brain matter. This is like your standard brain cells. You have nerves, you have like your thinking juice in here. That's your brain. These holes are created by prions clumping together and taking away proteins from cells, creating these kinds of spaces within the brain tissue. That really destroys the brain tissue. I mean, think about it. If your brain has holes in it, do you think it'll function? Okay, I really hope that the consensus there is no, because if your brain has holes in it, your brain like generally won't function. They're actually really cool. They're actually very cool studies where they take half of a human's brain out and the human can still function. But this is very different. This is not like surgically removing half of your brain. This is a disease that is ravaging your brain, leaving irreversible damage to your brain. um, and like I said, it leads to brain damage. Yes, what's up, Anthony?
Does everybody who get prions just die?
What's up? Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Does everybody who gets prions like just die?
Yes, prions are, to my knowledge, 100% fatal. To my knowledge, they are 100% fatal. If you are infected with a prion, I think the average is about 18 months you have to live after initial symptoms show up or like initial diagnosis. So prions are, I mean, they are deadly. We have humans, like I said, we don't have a very good understanding of prions, which means we also don't have good therapies to fight prions. I will also talk about how the human body reacts to prions or how the immune system reacts to them, which is very interesting. Is that okay, Anthony?
Yeah, and also can other animals get prions?
Yes, I will talk about that. But to just briefly answer your question, a bunch of other animals can get prions. A very a very common animal that can get prions are cows. Is that okay, Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, Colby. I see everyone's questions. I will get everyone.
Can any of the symptoms kill you?
Um, um, that's an interesting question because one of the symptoms of prions disease of prion diseases are you're not able to swallow food. It's because your brain can't really control your swallowing mechanism. And so you can certainly die due to starvation and you can die due to dehydration. But usually the fact that the brain has holes in it kills you way before dehydration will kill you. Right. Usually people who are living with this kind of disease are taken care of either by family members or caregivers, and they will be fed, they will be cleaned, they will be bathed by these people. And so usually it is the brain damage that kills the people. Good? Cool. Okay. Daniel, what's up? Daniel?
I just joined.
Oh, okay, okay. Daniel just joined. Don't worry, I'm recording this, so if you do want to go onto the YouTube, you can also look at that. But I will also talk about the previous slide. For your information, Daniel, prions are proteins that are folded poorly, and they cause brain damage because other proteins clump onto these poorly folded proteins. Jane, what's up?
Like, were you saying that people cut out people's brains and what?
Right, okay. Yes. I know this may sound very very outlandish, but there is a process where surgeons can go into the human brain, remove half of it, and the human can still function. Obviously it's a little bit harder, but the brain is very plastic, it's very elastic. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Point is, Jane, it's very flexible. So the brain can learn to control the entire body, and half of the brain can learn to control the entire body as well. So when we do go in and we remove half of the brain, the other half of the brain that we leave in can still control the human body. The human can still think. Jane, I will look up the procedure name right now and see what it's called.
Okay.
While I'm doing that, Colby, what's up?
What are all of the symptoms of prions?
Okay. Just Jane, very quickly, I found it. It's called a hemispherectomy. Basically, one hemisphere or one half of the brain is removed. It's called a hemispherectomy. I will put it into the chat, Colby, and then I will answer your question. Should be in the chat. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Colby, some of the symptoms of Prions disease. I think the main symptom is rapidly developing dementia. Do you know what dementia is, Colby? Dementia is, do you know what Alzheimer's is? Okay. So dementia is a kind of disease where your brain no longer functions to its full capacity. People with dementia, people with Alzheimer's, people with certain prion diseases, they struggle to remember their memories, they struggle to remember their name, they struggle to perform daily tasks. Basically, the brain function, you start off as a very clear thinking individual, and you know that 1 + 1 is 2. And then over time, your brain becomes foggy, it does not think as well. And at some point, you believe that 1 + 1 is like 6, for a really bad example. Basically, that's dementia. Your brain loses its clear thinking capacity.
I remember reading about like someone that got struck by lightning and they didn't even like do 1 + 1 or anything. Like
Yeah, I mean,
um,
lightning is like thousands of volts. If you get hit by that, I mean, it's dangerous. Lightning can kill you. Yeah, it's certainly bad. But also symptoms include you can have difficulty walking because your brain struggles to control your limbs. You can have hallucinations. You can be confused all the time. You can have fatigue, which means you're just tired all the time. And you can have difficulty speaking, so you can't control your mouth as well. Is that okay, Colby?
and I'm just telling you usually that like lightning if lightning strikes you, you usually will like survive, but then your heart might like stop because of shock or something and kill you.
Right. The heart runs on electrical impulses. And I'm sure lightning can mess that up, which is scary. Yeah, I mean, generally you don't want to be struck by lightning. Right. Okay. Daniel.
Something happened to your screen.
Oh yeah, I know I'm not screen sharing here. I should be screen sharing now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for letting me know. Anthony, I believe you had a question too.
That's just by accident.
Okay, all good, all good. Okay. Let's talk about how the body reacts to prions. And the issue is the body doesn't react to prions. The human immune system is just kind of like, okay, no, we're just gonna let the prions pass. And so they get to the brain like relatively easily. The human immune system doesn't really realize until maybe the final stages of where the prions are already starting to create these holes in the brain. We're still trying to figure that out. But the general consensus right now is that the immune system doesn't really know that the prions are there, partially because these prions have been made by the human body. Think about it. These are proteins that are made by the human body, and then they are folded poorly. They are folded wrong by the body. But that doesn't mean that the body knows that they're folded wrong. The body only knows that it made these proteins. So the immune system might not recognize these as dangerous. They just recognize them as the proteins of the human body. Okay, any questions, anybody? Cool. Okay, so now that we have a very basic understanding of how prions are made, how they're folded poorly, and then how they can affect the brain, we're going to talk about the different kinds of diseases that they can cause. What's up, Daniel?
Go back to the first slide.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Can you go back to the first slide?
Is there something that did you have a question on the first slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
What? Which is what? Wait. What's all that?
Sorry, what?
What's all that?
Oh, what's all of this?
Yeah.
Okay, can you let me get through the lesson first, and I will come back so that the recording is in the correct order, so then the people watching the recording can have like a generally more structured lesson plan. And then I will end the recording, and then Daniel, we will come back to talk about infectious agents, okay?
Okay.
Okay, cool. And this will be relatively quick as well. Okay. Everyone knows what kind of animal this is, right? I shouldn't have to explain what animal this is.
Cow.
Okay, cool. It's a cow. Great. I'm glad you guys know this is a cow. There are a lot of different animals that can be infected by prions. Does everyone also know what kind of cow this is? Is this a calf or okay, it's a baby cow, right? Can everyone understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's a baby cow. Great. We are on new levels of scientific understanding. Cows are one of like the main culprits of prion diseases, but deer can also be infected. Everyone knows what deer are, right? Right? Deer can be infected, moose can be infected. Mooses, I think. Mooses is the plural of moose, so mooses can be infected, as well as elks. Everyone knows what elks are.
Yeah.
Right. So all of these kinds of like four-legged, deer-looking, cow-looking animals, I believe horses can also get them. And so, like generally, like these kinds of things happen to these kinds of animals. I mean, humans can get prions diseases too, which is, unfortunate, but a true fact of life. And generally, it's common among cows and horses. I mean, it's not common, but it happens more frequently. In other animals, say like a turtle. I mean, I've never heard of a turtle getting a prion disease.
I have a turtle, so.
You have a turtle? Okay. I mean, generally domestic turtles will also like definitely not get prion, so you don't have to worry about that. Anthony, what's up?
What was like the last recorded human prion case?
I mean, the thing is, Anthony, human prion cases are still happening today. Prion disease is not something that is like smallpox, where it was like 2,000 years ago, the first smallpox virus appeared and it infected some Egyptian people, and then it infected some Aztec people, and it nearly wiped out the native population of of North America, and South America. And then Edward Jenner came along and created a vaccine. And we had variolation, and we had like eradication of smallpox, and the World Health Organization declared it like completely eradicated, and we had like great triumph against smallpox. That is not what happened with prions. Prion disease is still very much a thing. However, what's important to note, Anthony, is that over the period of time that smallpox was active, smallpox killed millions of people. Millions. Like, I'm not joking, it has killed millions of people. Prions disease, I'd say like way less than a million. Way less than a million. I think, okay, I'm not gonna put an estimate on it, but it's way less than a million. And smallpox has killed way more than 100 million people. So the kind of time scale and the kind of general scale that we're looking at prions diseases with isn't with like the incredible urgency to save millions of lives. It is with the understanding that we need to better combat prions disease. But people, even today, are still getting prions diseases. Cows, even today, are still getting prions diseases. Deer today are still getting prions diseases. Is that okay, Anthony?
Yeah, and also, where does Prions disease most commonly happen?
Oh, okay. Great question. So are you asking about in humans or in cows?
Humans.
Great.
Oh,
Okay.
I have 1 more minute left.
Okay. Okay. Um, that's tough. Okay. I'm going to try to answer your question very quickly, Anthony. In Africa, there is a country called New Guinea. Actually, it might be Papua New Guinea. Shoot. Okay, point is, there is a country with the words New Guinea in it. I'm actually pretty sure it's New Guinea. But there's a tribe of people.
Guinea.
It's called New Guinea. Great, 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 great. I haven't completely lost my understanding of geography.
Me too.
Okay, great. But there's a disease that can occur in certain tribes in New Guinea, and it's called Kuru, Kuru. And Zoom is giving me the 10-minute notification, but we should be fine here. Kuru is a prions disease. It affects humans. It will kill humans. If you get Kuru, you will die. The harsh truth of prions disease is that if you get Kuru, you will die. The way that Kuru is, bye, Colby. I'm sad to see you leave.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Colby had to go there. But if you get Kuru, I'm repeating myself here. But the way Kuru is passed on is that some of these tribes practice a certain tradition. And this is very gruesome, but I think you guys are mature enough to talk about a subject like this. Does everyone know what cannibalism is?
Yeah.
Okay. Cannibalism is where
Oh,
cannibalism is where one species eats a member of the same species. And the tribe yes, I mean some fish eat other fish, like some sharks will be seen attacking other sharks.
Do
Um,
they eat their like brains?
they what?
Do they eat their like brains?
Yes. Yes, they do. These tribes that are affected by this disease, Kuru, which is a prion disease, they have traditions that are passed on generation from generation to where when one of your ancestors pass away, their bodies are eaten by the people that are still alive. And their tradition says that this keeps the memory of those people alive, and it keeps them living through like your own body, your own spirit, and that is their tradition. And we do not judge tradition, even if we might perceive that as gruesome. What is an issue, however, is that because they eat the brains, if someone in their family who passed away had Kuru, they will also be infected by Kuru. And so it becomes this almost inherited disease, which can be scary because this is tradition ingrained, but it also kills them. This is life altering. It will destroy their brains and it will destroy their lives. So now we come to this issue where it is their tradition, but it will also kill them. And so how do we balance the two? Because we don't want them to die, obviously. And so obviously they need to create new traditions. Be it whatever they may, be it whatever they may be. But yes, the region where human prion disease is very well known is New Guinea, where Kuru is a thing. But in the US, we get all sorts of other kinds of prion diseases. Fatal familial insomnia can happen in the US. And there are other more technical names for other diseases. Let me see if I can find one quickly. It's okay, that might take a little bit of time. Okay, but does that answer your question, Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Does anyone have any other questions to follow up on that? We only have 6 minutes left, so I'm gonna excuse me. I'm gonna try and get through this. Okay.
Can you go back to the first slide?
Okay. I will do that as soon as I finish the presentation, Daniel. Don't worry. Okay. Don't worry. Okay, so let's talk about diseases in other animals. When a cow gets infected with a prion disease, one of the names for that is mad cow disease. And the technical name for mad cow disease, like the scientific name, we call it bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Sorry, encephalopathy. There we go. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy. In other words, bovine means cow. Spongiform means that something is being changed into a sponge shape. And you guys will remember that when a brain is infected by a prion, it turns into this kind of structure that has a bunch of holes in it. And everyone knows that a sponge has a bunch of holes in it. And encephalopathy, it is a disease of the brain. I'm going to try and pronounce this one more time. Encephalopathy. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Cool. Okay. All of these prion diseases are classified as something we call progressive neurologic disease. Does everyone know what progressive means?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Wait, I think it means like it's like adding on something.
Right. So progressive means that it gets worse over time, or it can even get better over time. But something happens over time. It either gets better or it gets worse over time. Like progression, that can be better over time, but progression of a disease, that's getting worse over time. So that's what progressive means. Prion diseases get worse over time. And neurologic simply means that they damage the brain, they damage the spinal cord. These prion diseases are targeting the organ that allows us to think, that allows us to have emotions, that allows us to be human, right? Which is why prion diseases are frankly terrifying. One of the things that prion
Wait,
diseases...
I have a question.
Yeah, Daniel, what's up?
So you said you're targeting the things that make you not human. So if they get like your organs that make you human, then you'll become non-human.
Okay, so interesting question. I didn't say that prions make us non-human. It is the fact that the brain is what makes us human, right? It controls our thoughts, our perception on the world, our activity, our societies, and the way we interact with each other. That's the human that's nearly the human condition, right? That is what makes us human. We are able to converse, we are able to create these societies, we are able to empathize with each other, we're able to be human, we're able to, feel emotions, and eventually we die. That is part of the human experience. What prion disease is what I'm saying is that it targets the organ that makes us human. And I'm not saying that the heart doesn't isn't crucial to the human, but the brain is what controls the human condition, right?
Wait, so what parts does it target?
Prions target the brain. Prions target the brain.
Okay.
Cool. You might have missed that slide where I made that very clear. But some of the symptoms that I also mentioned earlier, you can have trouble standing. If you're a cow, you can have trouble mooing. And you can have trouble eating. So, some of the stuff if you're a cow. But as I mentioned, human versions can also occur. Think of Kuru, think of fatal insomnia disease. Generally, younger cows will eat like bad cow feed that is infected with prions. And then, by the time they're 5, they're getting symptoms, and they'll be dead in like 18 months. So it's not pretty. Okay. Yes, what's up, Anthony?
But how is the hay infected by the prions?
How's the hay?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Because hay is not actually what cows eat. Cows eat a certain type of feed, and that feed can actually be mixed with ground up dead cows, believe it or not. And that is how prions get in there. Is that okay, Anthony?
Yeah.
Are they
Okay.
forced to eat that?
Okay, guys, we have less than a minute left. I'm going to stop my screen share. Daniel, I will go through that first slide with you when we come back. But I'm going to stop my recording. I'm going to end this session of the class. We will come back and we will play a GIMP kit. I believe there's a new mode, but I will restart this meeting. Okay, so I will see everyone again.
Yeah, the new mode's basically Gold Quest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what Gold Quest is, but all right. Bye, guys. I'll see you guys soon.